Hi and welcome. I'm Terry Bach and I'm the host of the Rewrite Your Money Story series. Today we're talking about overspending and debt, which is so important to me because in talking with other entrepreneurs, I've seen how many of us overspend and get ourselves into debt for a variety of reasons, both in our business and in our personal lives. So I've invited several experts on money and in business to discuss the topic of this event, which is how entrepreneurs overspend, how to avoid it, how to get out of debt once they're there. And today I have invited April Benson here to give us her perspective on compulsive buying. So April Lane Benson, PhD, is an internationally known psychologist who specializes in the treatment of compulsive buying disorder. I didn't even know there was such a thing. But in 2000, Dr. Benson edited the first multidisciplinary examination of her subject, I Shop, Therefore I Am, Compulsive Buying and the Search for Self, and her second book, To Buy or Not to Buy, Why We Overshop and How to Stop, which offers a highly effective program for stopping overshopping. So welcome, April, and
Thank you.
for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Terry.
I love those titles of the books that you've written. I Shop, Therefore I Am, and Why We Overshop and How to Stop.
To buy or not to buy?
To buy or not to buy, yes. So I'd like to start by hearing more about what brought you to do this type of work.
My favorite store closed in 1994.
Okay.
And the store was 2 blocks from my apartment. And I had shopped in this particular store for over 20 years. And in my experience, of shopping at this one store for 20 years, I discovered a lot about my own shopping history and my own shopping issues.
Okay.
And I found that when I went to this store over time, I was able to see much better who I really was and what I wanted to look like. And I was able to shed some of the negative voices that I had been carrying with me since childhood about shopping and buying and looking good and spending money.
Okay.
So when I heard that the store was closing, I felt I needed to do something to acknowledge its role in my life.
Okay.
So I wrote an essay called When Shopping Heals, about my particular experience of shopping in this store. And one thing led to another, and I started doing workshops called When Shopping Heals, because for the 20 years prior, I had been working with people with eating disorders, anorexia nervosa and bulimia. And there is a lot of crossover between these two issues. So it was a natural fit in many ways. And so, as I said, one thing led to another. My workshop ended up in New York Magazine, and someone called me about writing a book, and that was it. So over time, I developed a program for helping people to stop over shopping based on what had worked well with people with eating disorders, as well as with people with other addictions and other problems. Okay. So everything that I put into the program was evidence-based, which made it much more likely that when I developed this program using evidence-based models and methods, that my program as a whole would also be evidence-based, and it was. We did a research study, a randomized controlled study of people that had the program, people that didn't, and the differences. And we saw very significant differences, both at the end of the 12 weeks of the program. And even at 6 months, some of the gains were even better at 6 months.
Wow, that's incredible. Going back, you said something about you looked back at some of the things you were saying to yourself. Can you share what some of those things might have been?
Yes. My mother was a child of the Depression, and she was poor growing up, and she was very concerned about spending money. But
Sure.
she did love beautiful things, and her mother was a seamstress. So her mother could make her a lot of beautiful things, and she still felt envy, I think, for the girls on the other side of the tracks. So
Right.
I grew up with these mixed messages. On the one hand, my mother wanted me to be more and have more than she did. On the other side, I think she resented me for it at the same time. So I just didn't know which way to go. You know, what was going to feel good to me.
Sure. That would be confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could pick up as a child, I'm sure, some of the envy that she might have had when you did get those nicer things.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay. Any other messages that you became more aware of?
Yes. Like hearing things like money doesn't grow on trees. I remember things like he who has the most toys when he dies wins. These are some of the bumper stickers that I
Right.
remember.
Yes.
You know, shop till you drop. New shoes change the blues. So,
Ooh, I like that one.
yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
actually, new shoes chase the blues.
Oh, chase the blues.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Either one works.
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you describe or how would you define compulsive buying?
Compulsive buying is when somebody spends so much time, energy, and or money. It doesn't even have to be money. It
Right.
could be just the expenditure of time and energy, shopping, thinking about shopping, buying, browsing, that it's negatively
Okay.
impacting their life in a significant way. The
Okay.
way that we think of the most is financially. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's up to their eyeballs in debt, has no money for retirement, has no rainy day fund. But there are many other consequences, negative consequences, interpersonal, fighting with a spouse, fighting with children, emotional, anxiety, guilt, shame,
Okay.
personal development over aftershocks, I call them. Somebody who has so much time, energy, and maybe money invested in shopping and spending that there's nothing left for pursuing a hobby, traveling, experiences. Their
Okay.
lives are so filled with goods and services that ideas and experiences get short shrift.
Okay.
And we have research that shows that when people use their discretionary income on things like experiences and ideas, meaning a social event that brings you into contact with a loved one, or
Mm-hmm.
or taking a course, that we get much more satisfaction than the next pair of black boots.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That makes sense. How, for our listeners, how would somebody know when their shopping behavior has become enough of a problem for them to need help?
Well, I'm going to give you two answers. Answer number one is to go to our website, and in the upper left-hand corner, there is a little icon. Why do I overshop? 3 ways to know if you have a problem.
Okay. Okay.
Who needs help? Question mark. 3 ways to know. And there are 2 valid and reliable research instruments and 1 series of questions. And there's a scoring key, so
Okay.
somebody can do it more formally, Or
Sure.
they can do it informally and ask themselves things like, do I use shopping as an equal opportunity, all-purpose mood changer?
Mm.
Have I tried to change but been unable to? Do I feel guilty or ashamed about this behavior? Am I lying or hiding from people I love? And finally, and this is a more difficult question, but an important one, might my life be richer if I weren't shopping so much?
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Okay. How might you help somebody, or how would somebody get help with this problem? Let's start with how you work with somebody to help them with the problem of compulsive buying.
Okay, so the program I've developed is a very comprehensive one that goes at the behavior both from cognitive thinking,
Okay.
feeling, and behavioral directions. And it
Okay.
begins with an exploration of why you overshop and how it all began.
Okay.
Then it moves to what are the triggers? What brings up these impulses?
Sure.
What are the consequences?
Okay.
What's the nature of your ambivalence? What part of you wants to stop? What part of you doesn't? What do you
Mm.
think the costs and the benefits of continuing are? What are the
Okay.
costs and benefits of stopping? And it moves on from there to things like the high cost of credit card debt, the centrality of savings. People
Okay.
start writing down everything they spend every day, not just the actual cost, but they compute
Mhm.
something called the necessity cost, which is the actual cost times a score of how important you think the purchase was. If it's
Mm.
an unnecessary purchase, then it gets a 0. If
Okay.
it's an essential purchase, it gets a 1. So at the end of the day, you have two figures: the actual cost of what you spent that day and the necessity cost, how much
Mm.
you really needed to spend if you were only buying things that were more necessary rather than less, or how much money you could be saving if you were only buying things that were more necessary.
Okay. Interesting. You mentioned triggers. What might some of those triggers be that would create people overspending or compulsively buying?
So there are emotional triggers. You've had a
Mhm.
fight at work and you feel bad about yourself. There
Okay.
are interpersonal triggers. You see somebody that you don't feel that comfortable around wearing something new and beautiful. And
Mm.
you decide that the only way that you're going to feel comfortable around this person is if you have something like that too.
Okay.
There are an upcoming high risk situation for you might be a wedding or an event or a new season. Some people overshop when in August when the fall fashions come out.
Okay.
So it could be a situational trigger, an interpersonal trigger, an emotional trigger,
Got
even a
it.
physical trigger.
Sure.
Somebody who gets migraine headaches, and one way to anesthetize themselves is
Mm-hmm.
to start going to the internet and buying.
Okay. Okay. So speaking of the internet, how has internet shopping, oops, excuse me, how has internet shopping affected compulsive buying behavior?
I wish I could tell you that we have great statistics to, however, what I can tell you is that in my practice, internet shopping is a huge factor in compulsive buying because it's 24/7. There's anonymity.
Right.
Home shopping network, there have been studies of 100 testimonial calls to QVC, and
Mm,
a full 75% of the reasons that people buy
sure.
have to do with compulsive buying on
Right.
at that particular network.
Okay. I would also think that because it's so immediate, I mean, there's instant gratification of at least buying it. Uh,
And
Whereas
go
if
on.
you have to shop, you have to get in the car, you have to go, you have to, and that may
Yes,
slow you
yes,
down a bit
yes.
too.
the pain of paying is much less, cash
Right.
is the most painful.
Yes.
Just clicking, one click shopping, is no delay, no pause.
Right.
And one of the things I do is that everybody who works with me or who buys a book or anything, and it's also on my website, there's a little card with 6 questions on it. And I suggest to people that they ask themselves and answer these questions, preferably in writing, which also brings up another issue, which I'll mention, or another offering, which I'll mention in a minute. But the questions are, why am I here? How do I feel? Do I need this? What if I wait? How will I pay for it? Where will I put it? And if you can ask those 6 questions to your satisfaction, you've created a space between the impulse and the action, and it's probably not a compulsive purchase. We now have on the internet an offering called the Urge Strikes Guided Self-Help Tool. And people can purchase that on our website.
Okay.
And they download an app called Mentagram. And this tool that we have is housed on that app. And it's more than the 6 questions I just mentioned, but it incorporates them. It starts by asking what your mood is and, what your mood is like.
Right.
And asks you what it is you're thinking about buying, what kind of consequences you think there would be from buying it, how strong those consequences might be, what's the underlying need that you think you're trying to meet in this purchase, and then asks you the questions, and then the moment of truth. Are you going to buy or not? If you've decided to buy, then there's one more series of questions. And if you've then asked yourself those and you've decided to buy, you've done your homework.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
April, in the work that you do with people, how successful do you think they are at stopping themselves to be able to do that?
What I can say is I have been so impressed over these years.
Okay.
The program is a lot of work. You have to read a text, you have to write, you have to, you have to keep your numbers. And I would say almost everybody throughout this time has actually done the work. If you do the work, there's no chance that you're not going to make big progress because it's work.
Right.
Occasionally somebody has not wanted to do the exercises, not wanted to do the reading, and then sometimes we do more of that in the session, and that sometimes jump starts them.
Sure. And I would imagine by the time people come to do your program, they're ready to make changes.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Now, sometimes a lot of people's spouses or parents contact me, and then it's not necessarily the case that the person with the problem is ready.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's information for friends and family on the website too.
Okay.
How to help somebody.
Sure. I'll have to check that out. Are there any additional resources that you want to talk about that are available?
On the website, there is a whole tab called resources.
Okay.
And that resource, it has articles, books, websites, a whole soup to nuts of what I've found to be valuable. Online compulsive buying groups. Everything I know that I think is a good thing is on there.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I understand that you have a free gift for our listeners, and would you like to describe that?
Yes, the free gift is a handout called 3 Proven Strategies for Stopping Over Shopping. And the proven strategies help you to begin to look at what your underlying emotion is that's triggering the impulse, what the authentic need is that you're trying to meet, and what's another way to meet that need that is actually going to enhance your life rather than erode it.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
For the listeners, you can just click on the button below and that will take you right to April's free gift. So April, thank you so much for being here. This was incredible. I love hearing more about what you're doing and about the in-depth of your program to help people.
Thank you.
Yes. And for the audience, I want to thank you also for being on the Rewrite Your Money Story series. And tune in tomorrow for our next expert who will be talking about overspending, getting into debt, and what to do about it. Thanks for being here. See you later.